Hello and welcome. So the first comment here today. I have recently made the decision to go back on medication for my anxiety. I've tried not to take medication, but my anxiety affects loved ones around me. Will this hinder my ability to develop my mind? I have autism. Okay, so with regards to your condition and the medication, firstly, you should only discuss this really with your doctor, physician, the one who is prescribing that medication. A Freudian slip there, I said meditation, because meditation is a medication. It is the prescription of the Buddha, from the Buddha, our physician, to heal our minds, to help calm our minds, to free our thinking brain from overthinking and anxiety, but by establishing the underlying root cause of that anxiety or that suffering or depression. And the prescription, the cure, is in meditation, preceded by our adherence to a moral code of conduct. Sila is the Pali word for that, of keeping certain precepts. If you're suffering from anxiety and you feel the need to go back on your medication, then firstly confirm with your prescribing doctor that that is what you should do. Don't come off of your medication and go back on your medication just as and when you feel it's necessary. Always speak to a professional. Not me. I don't know anything about pharmaceuticals or specific drugs relating to different mental conditions. I only know about the mental conditions themselves, generally speaking, like anxiety, like depression, and how it manifests in ourselves as a result of not understanding the cause of suffering. When we come to truly develop panya, wisdom, as a result of practicing this Noble Eightfold Path, we will free ourselves from anxiety and subsequent depression. Because we will see clearly there's really nothing to worry about. Everything is impermanent. And yes, it is unsatisfactory. We are suffering. But it's out of our control. It's not our fault. There is no person, or persona to take these difficulties in life, the vicissitudes of life, personally. We can become detached, not bury our heads in the sand, but see clearly the root cause of suffering. But please speak to your doctor, explain. You don't have to explain Buddhism or your practice, but that you are still suffering from anxiety, although you are taking a mindful approach. Now, most people these days understand that concept of mindfulness in that context, in the context of healthcare. And that's a good thing. It means you're mindful of your behavioral characteristics, how your body and your thinking brain are reacting to environmental issues around you and your experience of life. And therefore, you act accordingly and carefully, instructed by that experience, but not reacting, but understanding the appropriate way to behave or react when needed. Explain you're adopting a more mindful approach to life, and that you refrain from doing either yourself or others harm by refraining from taking any intoxicants. You no longer or you never have drank alcohol or taken any other form of drugs that dull the mind, cloud the clarity of seeing clearly, of your perception, of your faculties, because they are a hindrance. Now, most medication is not necessarily an intoxicant, and if prescribed professionally by a doctor for a reason, it's okay to take that and it won't be a hindrance. But if you explain to your doctor that your understanding of your condition is clear and that you accept you need medication to keep that condition at bay for now, but you wish that you had medication that didn't cloud the mind or dull the mind, if indeed it does or it doesn't, I would not know, then he will understand that and also see that you're working in other ways to alleviate your anxiety. And those other ways are just living in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path. So yes, after taking your doctor's advice, you can resume taking medication if it is necessary, he deems it so. But this does not mean you cease practicing, you continue alongside. And after time, with continuous review, regular appointments with your doctor, your causes for that anxiety will reduce and eventually be eradicated. And there will be no longer any need for medication. But it needs to be kept under constant and close review and discussed regularly with the prescribing doctor. Okay, there was one question last time about when was the first time you saw that karma was real, and you pointed to the law of gravity and just actions. But in this video you say that they, this is to quote me apparently, and this may be of some time ago because we get lots of comments and questions, but anyway, the quote is, they, stroke enemies, created their own bad karma. End of quote. So, I think that was exactly what that person was asking about. Okay, how do you know that, and when was the first time you proved this to yourself? That karma went from one lifetime to another. And sorry for pushing you to answer this. Feel free not to if you're not comfortable or not allowed. I'm allowed to speak of anything other than my own attainments, but we shouldn't be concerned with my own attainments or the attainments of others, only our own practice. But once again, I think I did answer the question that we are responsible for our karma, we're the owners of our karma, we're the heirs to our karma, and we chant this in our 5 subjects for frequent recollection each and every day, or at least we should contemplate this in our reflections each and every day, along with the nature of aging, sickening and dying, aging, sickness and death, that we are all subject to aging, sickness and death, as we are the heirs to our own karma, for which we are individually responsible, and that others' karma is theirs. When particularly did I know that? I pointed to gravity. It's something that is an aspect of physics, part of physics, of this conditioned world that we experience, and we come to know that it is a thing we then label, we call gravity, eventually. And similarly so, we learn through life with a modicum of, so a moderate amount of intelligence or common sense or wisdom, that if we do bad things can happen as a result of that. If other people do bad things to us, then we may be the victims and the victims as a result of their bad actions. And karma means actions. And we come to realize this from experience. And you may think at that point, well, that's affecting me, not them. But that's because we have only got a modicum, a moderate amount of intelligence, wisdom, but a large amount of avidya, ignorance, to the fact that each and every one of us is responsible for, the owners of, and the beneficiaries of our own karma. That what we do, our acts of body, speech and mind, not only affect others, but if they're negative or positive, affect ourselves accordingly at some point, eventually, not necessarily in that present moment. Our actions now can be determined by, and our intentions now, and also our experience now, can be and is determined by causes and conditions we've put in place in the past. Our actions of body, speech and mind, our karma. That doesn't necessarily affect people you're dealing with now, in the present moment, but it does you. Now, when was exactly the time that I first knew that? I think we all know that always. The Dharma puts it into words, a conventional way of explaining something, not only to others, but to ourselves, how something works. A kind of analysis, but of a very basic nature. So when someone explains to you that if someone hits you, it hurts you, but actually the guilt for having hurt you, or the negative karmic effect, one should say, rather than guilt. So the causes and conditions that that person's put in place for hitting you will far more greatly affect them than the brief amount of pain you suffer. So for instance, someone bops someone on the nose, a complete stranger. That hurts the complete stranger for a moment or two. But then if that complete stranger takes this individual to the police, the courts, and this individual is convicted of assault and punished accordingly, that negative effect of that negative karma is going to go on and last for considerably longer than that moment of pain you suffered. Now, we don't have a moment of, I know, I understand karma, bang, pop, there it is. We gradually come to understand it. We've always understood it, but we've uncovered it. This whole process of developing wisdom, developing these qualities, these factors of enlightenment, is about uncovering, as I've said so many times, what we already have. Not something we know, but what we're experiencing and is clearly evident, but we cover up with distractions as a result of our ignorance of Ija, as a result of delusion, thinking that we're something we're not, thinking we are this physical body and this thinking brain, its health, its intellect, when we are not that. They are transitional phases of our lives that develop and deteriorate. All of a very temporary, impermanent nature, all are affected by dukkha, suffering, and none of which are within our control. But what is within our control is our actions of body, speech and mind, how we use that physical body and that thinking brain in the present moment. And we will see very clearly when we begin to keep all of the precepts and we begin to practice meditation, how much our life changes. Even external influences that we're experiencing seem, from our new perspective of moral virtue and a more concentrated mind through meditation and mindfulness, how our perception is altered, how it changes. How we see more clearly that that person who bops us on the nose is suffering and going to suffer far more than you will ever suffer as a result of their actions. Unless you choose to dwell on that moment, extend it in your life, dwelling on it mentally forever, even long after the physical pain has gone, holding a grudge, prolonging your suffering, rather than letting it go, as one learns to do. So my moment was when beginning practice by keeping precepts, beginning to practice meditation some time ago, I gradually saw more clearly, developed this quality of seeing clearly, vipassana. To get this understanding of really the meaning of right view, the characteristics of existence, the nature of karma. Now we never get to really understand the full workings and mechanics of karma because it's impossible to do so as a result of us having had so many previous lives that we cannot recall, which may be responsible for what we're experiencing now in this present life, or even just within this life. We can't recall all of our actions of the past. Significant ones, yes, but some minor things we may have done in the past we've forgotten about may, at some point in the future, come out of the woodwork, as they say, come out from their hiding to affect us in the future. We may have harmed someone in the past and now thought nothing of it, forgotten about it. But as a result of that, we may come up against that in the future. Or we may not. We cannot understand through logic the mechanics of karma in that way. Someone you bullied or was rude to or harmed at school, for instance, for example. You may never see them again. You may never feel directly the consequences of that karma. You may not even feel guilty about that. But say you are preparing for and you go to a job interview, you've passed the various phases of application, and you're sitting before the board for final questions and maybe acceptance and really hopeful to get that job. And that individual that you bullied at school, you harmed, you were cruel to, is sitting on that board and is the main decision maker. there, immediately, is the results of your karma. Are they going to give you the job? Hopefully, yes. Hopefully they've put that aside, long behind them, and let go. But maybe they still have a lot of delusion, avidya, a lot of pride. And now, maybe they see that as the opportunity to, well, he bullied me at school. I won't harm him. I won't give him a job, rather. So the Dhammapada opens up with these verses, doesn't it? He harmed me, he insulted me, he hurt me. And one who dwells on that suffers. But one who lets that go is free from suffering. But we are the heirs to and the karma for which we are responsible for. It's through this practice that we come to see that clearly. As for me, this is how you uncover what you've always known. As for a lot of the qualities we develop through this practice, by the practice, to see clearly what is just physics and nature surrounding us and within us. On Uposatha days, do you also observe the quarter moons? I take up the 8 precepts on all 4 Uposathas. Is that okay or accurate to do? Yes, there's nothing accurate or not accurate, right or wrong. If you're working Monday to Friday with just weekends off, Saturday and Sunday, it might be easier for you to, say, use Sunday as the day to keep 8 precepts. The reason the Uposathas are observed in Buddhist countries specifically, or coming from the time of the Buddha, this was the calendar, the way the months were marked, the lunar calendar, so therefore formed that, what we now have from the Gregorian calendar, the Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, weekend week. They had the phases of the moon before calendars and writing things down. In the time of the Buddha, there was nothing much in the way of writing at all. That came later. In India, later than other places, which is why, naturally speaking, genetically almost, Indian people are so very good at learning, and how word of mouth, transmission of knowledge, wisdom, learning, studies, and even Buddhist scriptures were transferred from person to person, and even generation to generation, accurately, by learning word for word, texts, or not texts, but verses, talks, desanas, teachings, and passed on that way. And this was in a culture of using the lunar month. So it became established that Uposathas were like the equivalent of the Christian Sabbath or other religious observance days in other philosophies or religions, which do tend to pick certain days of the week for more devotional practice or a more disciplined adherence to a doctrine. But in Buddhism, we just extend our precepts a little to afford us more time to practice more deeply, to free up the afternoons, for instance. By not eating in the afternoon, we free up the afternoon for our practice of meditation. We're not having to even think about acquiring food, preparing food, eating food, and cleaning up after the food during those many meals we might have after, or snacks we might have after noon, if we were to eat in the afternoon. So immediately it frees us up with a lot of time. And we don't use any entertainment to distract us. and we refrain from beautification. But also to keep us awake and mindful, we don't laze around on luxurious furnishings. So this is extending the 5 precepts to 8 precepts. And it's perfectly okay to do that when is most convenient for you to do so. You don't have to strictly observe these on Uposatha days. But if you're in a Buddhist country, like in Thailand, they do so. They all do go to the monastery on each of the quarter Uposatha days. And it's perfectly acceptable for you to say to your boss, oh, I'll be late in this morning to work because I'll be visiting so-and-so temple on my way to offer dana. They wouldn't think twice about that. But then probably they're expected to work the other days a little more hard to make up for the difference. But this is normal in that culture. Here, it's just once a month on the full moon. They observe the Uposatha days. Of course, the monks, the Sangha here, as everywhere, observe the Uposatha days on the new moon and full moon as part of their routine, because these are the days that they reflect on the Vinaya, their code of conduct, by way of recitation of their 227 for monks, 311 for nuns, Patimokkha, as it's called, rules for being a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni. These are chanted, recited every full moon and every new moon, twice a month on the Uposatha. And some of us, from certain traditions, also use these as the time that we wash, clean thoroughly, and maybe re-dye our robes the day before the Uposatha. And the day before the Uposatha, the day we shave our heads, just to have a routine and a consistent way of living, rather than just, we don't shave our heads because we're going to a particular event, or we're going, maybe if we're going traveling for some time and we don't know the next time we will be within a Sangha, and therefore observing the Uposatha formally, maybe we won't have access to facilities, so before travelling for a length of time we might shave our heads then. Other than that, these kind of ablutions, cleaning of our robes, shaving our heads, is just done twice a month, every 15 days. The day before the new moon, the day before the full moon. Not, oh, I've been invited to this house for a lunch tomorrow, so I'll shave my head so I look especially smart. Of course, this doesn't enter our minds. We don't think about this. It's just, oh, Uposatha tomorrow. We come together to recite the Patimokkha. It's the observance day, lunar observance day. So today, the day before, I'll make sure everything's all in its right place, clean and tidy, shave my head, and make ready for the next 15 days. But for you as a lay practitioner, observe these 5 precepts as often as you can, but when it's suitable to do so. So if that's Sunday, once a week, that's fine. If it's the Uposatha day, every quarter moon, that would be once a week, but it would be a different day of the week each time. But that's also fine. Do I understand correctly that when someone meditates by just sitting, or according to Anapanasati Sutta, they are cultivating both right mindfulness, samasati, and right concentration, samasamadhi, at the same time? So when I say just sitting and doing nothing, I do mean that, but most people find that very difficult to do. They'll sit and intend to do nothing, but sit and begin thinking and not stop thinking. In fact, start thinking more and more and more, and really start overthinking. Or they'll start fidgeting. So a way to help us sit and do nothing towards that end goal of experiencing nothing other than pure clarity is to focus on one thing and one thing alone. We call a meditation object. And that is what the Anapanasati Sutta teaches us to do. How to focus on something that's very, very evident, the breath. We're always breathing, it's always with us. We can bring it into all of our daily activities. Whenever we have a moment, there, we can take a breath in, a moment, short as it is, but of clarity and reflection, to become into the here and now, this present moment in time, rather than the past or the future, but the reality of the experience. That's mindfulness. Being with what we're doing. Concentration comes from sitting and practicing, doing nothing other than focusing on one thing, to just anchor the thinking brain to something. Now, if you put a boat in the middle of a lake or in the sea and expect it just to stay still there, you'll soon find it won't. You can't just say, boat, sit still and do nothing. It won't do that. It will drift. It will move. So we anchor it. We drop anchor, securing it to the bottom of the sea or the bottom of the lake, so as it cannot drift much and stays, relatively speaking, in one place. So we anchor our thinking brain to a meditation object in order that it can do as it's told, like the boat. Stay still. I'll be back tomorrow. I want you to be in the same place, boat. So I've dropped anchor. We do this with our thinking brain. We drop anchor by bringing our focus, our conscious awareness, our focus of attention to the meditation object. So yes, always we are developing mindfulness alongside samasati, alongside concentration, samasamadhi, as we are also developing samasamadhi, concentration, through our mindfulness throughout all of our daily activities. They're like two sides of the same coin. They complement each other. You need one to support the other. The more we sit, doing nothing but just with our anchor to the mindfulness of the breath, the more we develop a concentrated mind, which affords us, equips us with the ability to have more mindfulness in all of our daily activities. And then, consequently, with that mindfulness in all of our daily activities, we are better able, for instance, we're going to keep our precepts more easily because we're careful, we have mindfulness. We're going to do ourselves less harm, have less accidents, or cause others to have accidents, harming others, because we're careful. We're not heedless, we're mindful in all of our daily activities. And as a result of all of this upheld sila, moral virtue, we are able to concentrate more easily. It comes more readily to us to just sit and right now I'm going to just focus on the breath because I've got nothing else to worry about. I've been good today. I've not harmed myself, I've not harmed others. No results of karma, consequences to be concerned about in the future because I've put everything in place now, or am putting everything in place now and throughout today. By keeping sila, have been putting everything in place for a good future. So now I can just focus on the breath comfortably. So concentration comes more readily, doesn't it? Bhante, is there a thicker mat available for your knees? Knee replacements are a terror. Knee replacements are terror. It'll save on requisites later. I believe the Buddha chose a tree with appropriate soft grass, not hard rock. Actually, for the shelter of the tree, more so. And he was often given grass mats, such as this. They call kusha grass, which is a tough grass like this, which is just, usually in the time of the Buddha, it was just laid in different directions as a mat to sit on. And we have these mats here. These are grass mats. It's sufficient. Why do we need anything else? The way one is kneeling, when the short time that we're kneeling, okay, during the chanting we're kneeling for longer, but most of our weight is on our heels and toes. There's not much weight on our knees. So knee problems come as a result of perhaps sitting in this posture if you're not flexible enough or able to do so. Coming to sitting in this posture later on in life, it took me a long time, and probably, yes, I didn't approach it in the correct way. One should be very careful about damaging the intricate nature of knees because in the future, yes, you will suffer. This is a direct effect of irresponsible actions and the karmic effect of that. You know, you'll have damaged knees in the future. Maybe I have done long-lasting damage, but now, certainly now, it's quite comfortable for me to sit in this way. I'm not stretching anything. That's where any damage to knees would come from, if it was going to come from anything at all. Not kneeling, necessarily. But one doesn't need anything more than the very basic requisites of a bhikkhu. Any monks or nuns who require, for various reasons, extra things may or may not have their own reasons. But this is not what the Buddha taught. We have basic 8 requisites, our 3 robes, belt, needle and cotton, water filter or cup, I usually say, and our pindapata bowl is enough. It's all we need. There is usually, yes, somewhere soft you can sit. We won't go and actively choose a hard rock to sit on. I'm sitting on a grass mat rather than the bare concrete. But I do have this piece of cloth. This is more for the purposes of protecting me from whatever it is I sit on, and also protecting whatever it is I sit on from me. So if I was dirty and to go and sit on someone's living room floor, they wouldn't appreciate it when if I got up and left a nasty stain on their floor. So this cloth prevents that. But similarly, if I was to go and sit on someone's living room floor and it was very dirty, I'm protecting not me, but my robes, the robes of the Sangha that we respect, from picking up the dirt from that floor by sitting on a cloth. So we always put this sitting cloth between us and whatever we're sitting on. And I have the luxury of this very fine, beautifully woven mat. Now I'm told these mats take something like 3 or 4 weeks of constant work to weave just one and put them together, handmade, and they've been very generously offered to this meditation hall, Samadhi Sala, for people's comfort. But if I sit up on the asana there, the monk's place to sit, slightly raised platform there, the stage, feels like it with this new light we have, which does seem rather bright. I don't know whether this one it seems to be different to the one that's been exchanged or is replaced, that the previous one broke. Anyway, I wouldn't put another piece of cloth up there. I'd just sit up there on this, because the way we learn to sit is very comfortable. I prefer to sit like this wherever I go. When people offer me chairs with cloths on and cushions and all kinds of things, I get very disgruntled. I try to be equanimous, but I think, why? Why are you going to all this effort? Can I not just sit on the floor? I spend 98% of my life sitting on the floor. No, that's wrong. I mean, when I'm sleeping, I'm lying on the floor. But I spend 98% of my life on the floor? Why, just for this one occasion, this meal, or whatever it might be, do you insist that I have to sit in some kind of throne with all white cloth over it and cushions and arms? So I have to sit very uncomfortably with my legs, feet on the floor, not cross-legged like this, pointing my feet and being concerned that my feet are inappropriately directed towards someone or something, as we become very conscious of in Asia. It's very disrespectful to point your feet towards anyone. And when you've lived here for a long time, you become conscious of that, and you don't do that. So you never see my feet, except for when I'm chanting, and then it's impossible, by the way that cameras work, even at the most acute of angles, not to expose one's feet. But they're not pointing at anyone directly. It's evident that one is paying homage to the Buddha, and therefore my back is to you as is the soles of my feet to you whilst doing so. But don't worry about my knees. If they're going to have any problems later on in life, as we always can expect to experience as we get older, it will be as a result of my previous actions, not what I'm doing now. So any amount of mats would not help, but thank you for your consideration and concern. I'm sure there are many comfortable furnishings one could have if one chooses to, but as a bhikkhu, with my 8 requisites, I don't. Everything else around here, if ever I go anywhere, remains here. I do have some really rather luxurious items these days, like this beautiful meditation hall, Samadhi Sala, to sit in. But I still tend to meditate sitting in my kuti there, or on the veranda. And use this for seeing people and talking to you now. Audio and visual were very good during this talk, but the audio is choppy during the daily chanting. So thank you for the feedback and all of your feedback with regards to the sound and the light. It's been quite difficult to get it right, and we're slowly, gradually getting there. And just as you get something right, like for instance the lighting, because apparently it was all too dark in here, then we had a light and it was working well. But then that light broke. So for a few days it wasn't working at all. This is anicca, isn't it? It's uncertainty. I hope you can hear me clearly. As for the choppiness, the live streaming and the chanting in the morning is live. This is recorded. It may seem live, but it's recorded. It's not rehearsed, it's not pre-planned, so it's live to me, but it's recorded and then immediately uploaded to YouTube. So there's no requirement for a good internet connection to make this video. And the internet can be as slow as it likes. It will upload quickly or slowly. It doesn't matter. The quality is the same at the other end, it seems. But for the live streaming, so the morning chanting and evening chanting, is live streaming, requires internet. And the internet here in Sri Lanka is very poor, mobile internet. Well, I'm sure in cities it's very good, but I'm not in a city. I'm really on the edges here, the edges of a village, which is near a town. And even in that town, I don't think the internet's too good. And at busy times, it's even less good. So I've been unable to stream evening puja at 6 o'clock in the evening, being that that's about the busiest time for the internet usage. So when there are many people using it at the same time, it slows down. I think that's how it works anyway. So that's why the sound quality of this morning chanting is very poor sometimes. Sometimes it's okay. I've done as much as I can to address it by paying attention to where the microphone is placed, to create no other obstacles of sort of transmission, but it's still very much reliant on the internet. As far as the evening puja is concerned, the internet is not good enough to even begin the live streaming, let alone maintain its quality throughout. And there's only one other monk who is putting out YouTube videos at the moment here in Sri Lanka, foreign monk that is, so also reliant on mobile internet like myself and living in a rather remote region. I've noticed he's having the same problems. In fact, I haven't noticed because nothing's come out from him this week, probably for the same reasons as we're suffering here. I think it's probably also to do with the weather and the rain. Must affect these transmitters, these masts in places, and all the many power cuts we have that affect those. But we just live with that, and we develop patience. Eventually it would all become good again. I'm sure when the weather improves, and as they develop things, we have now got another SIM, an eSIM I managed to organise, so that we can flip between networks if one goes down completely, for consistency, so that if I'm unable to start the live stream in the morning, we can switch to the other network to try that one. But you know, that's just the way it is. But thank you for the feedback, and please continue with your feedback if there's something, if it doesn't sound right, or it's too dark, or you don't like cats, or who could ever say that, then just let me know and we'll look at making adjustments. After all, this isn't my channel, it's not for my benefit, it's your channel for you to benefit from and hopefully enjoy. And if there's something you can use it. Otherwise, let it go. And on that note, unless there's one of those quick sort of questions, which there is quite a quick question to answer before we finish. Do you still have parents living? If so, how do you not feel guilty for not caring for them? If they're gone, I understand. Well, I have, my father died prior to my ordination. In fact, I wasn't caring for him whilst he was sick, but my sister was caring for him, and I wanted to stick around to try and support my sister, even if it was only emotionally, and maybe the other members of my family. There was really only my sister and myself directly involved with my father then, when he was dying, well, however long ago it was now. And that was the family reasons, the personal reasons why I couldn't ordain when I intended to initially, which was I intended to initially ordain a lot longer ago than I eventually did. So, yeah, in those circumstances that we do care for our parents, even though I wasn't hands-on, my sister was, and I felt obliged to be around to support her. So I thought she was better at it than I was, and they had a better relationship. But I stuck around, but he's dead and gone. As far as my mother's concerned, she's healthy and very well, and in her mid-80s, and in the UK living. But my sister and her many grandchildren, so I also have a half-brother who had a different father, his children are all around my mother. They all have very close family relationships and ties, and all support each other. So I don't have any feelings of guilt that she isn't being looked after. If there was no one around to look after my mother, then the responsibility, would fall upon me, and I would need to perhaps go closer to home, or even go and stay with my mother to look after her. But there are so many members of my family able to do that nearby, I have no reason to feel guilty about living so far away. The only and the one person I keep in regular contact, no, actually, that's wrong, there's two, but the person I keep in regular contact just for the purpose of saying, hello, how are you, how's the weather, what have you been up to, and this nature of conversation is my mother, and that is acceptable to do so and expected of bhikkhus. I mean, not often, but perhaps rarely do we speak, but maybe once a week my mother might send me a message, in either an email or a WhatsApp message, depending on where I am, just to check how I am, say, hi, how are you, she'll say, and I say, yes, I'm fine, and maybe give me some, she's going on holiday, or her daughter or her grandchildren have done this or that. I say, oh, very nice. We just keep in contact that way. So she knows that I'm okay and happy, and her main concern, she always says, is that all her children are happy and content in whatever it is, whatever they're doing, wherever it is. Wherever they're doing it, as long as they're happy and content, is always my mother's concern. And as a parent myself, also, I don't have constant contact with my children, in fact none whatsoever, with the exception of that one other person that I do stay in contact with, which is my eldest son, whom is in England, but this is usually only by way of talking about, well, not the Dharma specifically, but practice and practical aspects of, he's one of the administrators to anything that needs administrating, if you like, that I don't deal with. So, for instance, if there wasn't an easy way for me to obtain a visa or a flight ticket and it was necessary for me to travel, he's my go-to person back in the UK who can organise that for me. But he's also a practitioner, a meditator, and we talk about that on occasions when given the opportunity to do so. He's also been able to visit me in Sri Lanka a couple of times, and we also met up once in Nepal. But again, he was there and here to practice at Vipassana centres. He goes to Goenka Vipassana centres and one other organisation's meditation centres regularly, and he was here to do that and paid me during that visit, a passing visit, to just keep in contact and discuss my own practice and what it is like living here, as do other people visiting Sri Lanka come to visit me here in the same way. So other than that, we stay kind of separated from families and worldly life and friends and former relationships. They tend to drop off, die away. As I say, I don't really speak to my other sons. I have no real need to or reason to. So, and my mother, just out of we just keep in contact so she knows I'm okay and I know she's okay. But I know she's also very well looked after. So on that note, I hope if there's something there useful, you can use it. If not, then just let it go and don't let it bother you. Until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.